Hey Zwifters, welcome. Hey Zwifters, welcome back to another live stream. And today I am going to be covering the Canadian Esport Championships, and this is the junior men's race. I noticed that there was no stream for the junior men, so I thought that I'd give them some coverage time and really just capture this race for you all to see. Some notable riders are definitely present in this race. We've got C Duel AF presented by Wolf, and we've got a whole host of others really strong riders. This is M. Glavich you're seeing right here with the attack on the front. This is bringing everyone's numbers up to that orange area, and that is just making everything a lot harder for these riders. And we're going to be seeing a lot of attacks because Rolling Highlands, the course that this race is taking place on, is certainly a punchy one, and it's one that requires a lot of skill to race on because you just have to be ready for an attack in pretty much every moment of the race, especially in these small roller areas where the speed can get pretty low. So this is where riders tend to attack quite a bit. And note that the riders are combined in categories, so there's a very wide range of ages in this race. So some of the riders are quite young, and others are on the older end for this junior men's category. You can see E. Henry here in the Canadian cycling kit. So definitely watch out for him. He looks to be a really strong rider. But overall, just looking at the Zwift power data, C Duel right here seems to be one of the strongest riders with a 5.8 watt per kilo 20-minute power, which is simply monstrous. And it's going to be hard for these riders to really keep this rider in control and make sure that he does not get too far away when he does try his breakaways, because I am sure that he will be trying a lot in this race. Alright, so I'm just going to take a quick look at these Zwift Power standings to sort of see how riders stack up here. Now note that for some riders, this is one of their first races on Zwift, so they don't have a whole lot of data on Zwift Power, but just going based off 20-minute power, the rider with the highest 20-minute power is going to be Connor Duel from AF presented by Absqui Finesse presented by Wolf, and that is a really strong esports team, so definitely watch out for him. He's got a monstrous 5.8 watt per kilo power, and that is going to be 11.7 watts per kilo for 15 second. So that's not quite the strongest in this group, but certainly he can sprint, so don't count him out in that finishing sprint. He is on the lighter end at around 47 kilograms, so that is why his watts per kilo are pretty high. Next rider that you should be watching out for is going to be this rider who is sitting really nicely in the bunch here. This is going to be C. Sanscardier, and this rider doesn't race much on Zwift, but has a 5.5 watt per kilo, 20-minute power, and it's going to be a lot higher watts-wise than the other rider we're talking about, Duel, because he is around 5 kilograms heavier, so that's going to be bringing his 20-minute power up close to 300, so that's going to make quite a big difference when he is pushing on the flats, so that's why you may see some watts per kilo discrepancy between the two riders. Now, looking at his 15-second power, he's got 11 watts per kilo, but about 20 watts more than Duel does on his belt. So definitely watch out for him in the sprint. Next after that, we got Josh Tyers. I saw him earlier in this race, but it appears that he had some sort of technical difficulty and was left pretty much stranded and tried to chase back, but ultimately ended up dropping out. So that's really unfortunate to see because he does have a really strong power, and I've actually raced against him in several races, and he's really one to watch out for. All right, so now taking a look at the fourth top rider, that is going to be Colton Zabolotny, and he's going to be sitting right here. C Zabolotny, if I can just track him down here. He looks to be a pretty experienced Zwifter. He's got that DT Swiss disc wheel set and the Bellhaven Haviland in Zwift. So that just shows that he's got some experience with Zwift racing, and not only is power going to be in play here, but also his watts per kilogram and really just how you played Zwift, because Zwift is a game and you really want to be alert at all times and just have good Zwift craft. So that's going to really come into play. You're going to see Zwift tactics really take over in certain points of this course. Now, taking a look at the next rider, we've got Evan Zikovits. We'll see if he's in this race here, racing for OBCZ U19, and he has a power 4.6 watts per kilo for 20 minutes, around 240 watts, and he does not quite have the best sprint. So we may want to watch out for him doing a bit of an early attack, trying to separate more of the attackers from the sprinters. Now talking about the sprint end of the power, we've got Ryan Nickerson, who is a good friend of mine, and he has got a pretty monstrous sprint with a 13.2 watt per kilo, 15-second power with 855 watts. That's going to top pretty much everyone in this group, even power-wise. So definitely watch out for him because he has the strongest sprint in this entire group, but he does not necessarily have the strongest threshold power. So if these riders are able to drop him before the finish, they may have a better shot at really taking him down before that finishing sprint. All right, right here, we're heading up this little bit before we hit the second lap of this course, and you're just seeing everyone just sprinting right off the front here. You can see this rider using their featherweight power-up. Great use of the feather power-up. It's perfect timing, and this is really going to cause a lot of separation here. We got a lot of riders dropped off the back, some of them already giving up, doing around 6 watts per kilo. But if you want to have any chance at competing in this race, you need to be holding around 6 watts per kilo all the way through the top of the race in order to hold on and catch up to these three riders who are really just making this race so exciting. You can see right here, Cartier, sorry about the pronunciation, and Zabolotny, and this rider right here, Peloquin. They are just riding as a trio, and they're working together here. This is really going to be interesting to see how this plays out, if the riders are going to chase behind him to try to bring him back, because they are pushing 6 watts per kilo, and the gap is only growing at this point. All right, now we can see here that the gap is now around 5 seconds. If they want to bring this rider back, they're really going to need to work on this climb. This is going to be the breakaway Bry, and this is going to be where the race finishes. It's just around 5 miles from now. So we've probably got around 12 minutes left of racing. So this is going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, because we do have some strong riders holding back in this group. We've got Duel here. Looks like he was off the back for a bit, and he's just coming back on. And Duel, they're going to need to work with Duel to really just pull them back to the front group to really just catch up and close that 6-second gap that is just continuing to grow. And this is going to be really interesting to see, because Duel here just catching back on, but not looking like he's wanting to really go to the front just yet and make a move to try to catch back up to those riders. But this could be determining the win. Now, the Category B riders are the younger riders, so they're not too worried about this right now because they are competing for their own age category. So they're not too worried about those Category A riders up the road, because all three of those in the front are going to be older riders. So some of the B riders here aren't going to be too worried, but those Category A riders should be really on the lookout here, getting ready to make some kind of attack to really just bridge that gap, because this could be race over for them, and they're fighting for a podium because those three riders there are all in the same age category, I believe. You can see here, everyone just sort of sitting in nicely, but these riders still working together pretty well, and it looks like to be Sanscardier pretty much doing most of the work on the front, kind of just getting everyone going in a rhythm, and these are all experienced riders. We see one rider on the Tron bike, one rider on the Cervelo S5, and I believe those are going to be the Shimano Dura-Ace C50 wheels. And then, so not the best wheel choice there, I gotta say, but still definitely shows that he is an experienced Zwifter if he knows which bike to be using on this sort of course. S-Works Venge and DT Swiss from Zabolotny, and he is going to be pushing pretty big watts here, almost 300 now, and they're just really chugging along and growing that gap. So it doesn't seem to be anyone from the chase group really willing to work. So this is going to be, I think these riders are going to be able to pull it off if there is not some massive move coming from the back to really just make that difference and bring these riders back. Still, Sanscardier on the front. Zabolotny took a small pull, but Peloquin seems to be working the smartest here. And take a look at their heart rates. These two riders seem to be closer to maxing out than this rider right here, Peloquin. So this rider could be playing this pretty smart. Not necessarily the best choice to really just sit in when everyone else in the group is working. Maybe not the nicest thing to do, but certainly is going to be the smartest tactics-wise, because these riders, it's going to come down to who's going to be crowned the national champion, and that is a big deal, and it's certainly worth fighting for. Jumping back into the chase group here, we got Duel on the front, pushing around 5 watts per kilo, and this seems to be pretty light for him. He's only at 160 beats per minute. I'm not sure where that is relative to his max heart rate, but certainly is going to be pretty low in my opinion for a junior. So I think he's sitting pretty comfortably right now. Now you can see here, it's still Duel on the front. Heart rate slowly creeping up to around 170, so I suspect he will probably back off sometime soon because this gap is not coming down, and it is only growing, in fact. Now the chase group has around 17 seconds to close in order to catch back up here. We got this Canadian kit right here. That is a pretty cool kit. Taking a look here. But these riders are all pretty experienced in Zwift. First rider's using a Canyon Arrow with TT Swiss. Certainly a solid choice for this course, but it's going to be better to use an all-out Arrow setup just because of the course profile. Now you can see Ryan Nickerson, E. Henry, and Glavich all using the Tron bike, showing quite a bit of experience under their belt on Zwift, and the rider behind using the Scott Foil and DT Swiss, so definitely a solid choice. Now, jumping back over to the front of this group, Zabolotny and Sanscardier still on the front, pushing pretty monstrous watts here. Both of them doing probably around 250 to 300 watts. Taking a look here, yep, that is going to be about the amount of watts that they are pushing. Peloquin still sitting in here around 175 beats per minute. These riders are also pretty comfortable. Zabolotny, maybe not so much at 188 beats per minute. But Sanscardier at 174, I think he is looking pretty comfortable at the moment. And he sort of has pretty good control over this group. So he's sort of dictating the pace on the front here. Gap is now up to 25 seconds. So that's going to be really, really hard to close at this point in the race, with only a few miles left to go until we hit this finish. You can see here, they're all pushing 6 to 7 watts per kilo. And note that these are some of the top riders in the nation. So that is why their power is just so extremely high. And these riders are just so strong that honestly, it could have been anyone's race. But these riders, by making that initiative and really just solidifying the gap, that just made this a whole nother race. And this is one of the nice things about Zwift racing is that, like, it always depends on your field and how the riders are attack-wise. Some of them, if it's a bigger group, attacks pretty much will never work. But if it is a smaller and more thinned out group like this is going to work. And there you can see here 27 second gap, and they're not necessarily pushing extremely hard here. You can see here these riders are just doing around 4 watts per kilo. That is below threshold for pretty much all of them because of how strong these riders are. But we can see here Duel here hopping back into the second group. You can see around 5 watts per kilo on the front here, still has control over this group. But these other riders, Glavich, Nickerson and Motai all have pretty good control over their heart rate. Glavich at around 52 beats per minute. I suspect that's some sort of error with his heart rate monitor, so I would just ignore that metric for now, as 58 beats per minute, a little low for the kind of power he's putting out. Now the gap is just growing really, really rapidly, around 31 seconds now at this point, and that's pretty monstrous, considering that this is a 3-man breakaway, and this just shows how much working together helps in a Zwift race. All right, heading into the final few miles of this race, we got a monstrous attack off the front here. Looks like Zabolotny is trying to thin out this group, putting a monstrous dig of around 11 watts per kilo, and that is going to make things a lot different in this front group. That sort of just changed up the whole dynamic of this group. You can see that everyone had to chase pretty hard, and honestly, Zabolotny played that really well because nobody was expecting it. Pace was pretty low, perfect chance to really just make a difference in this race. Or you can see here Sanscardier coming back to the front here, and we see Peloquin still held on perfectly fine. Oh, okay, another dig from Peloquin, putting in around 9 watts per kilo. Is this just a catch-up, or is this going to be an actual attack? Putting in around 8 watts per kilo here. If he really wants to make this work and make this worth the effort, he really needs to dig it all in and really just try to make the gap open up there. And this rider's been sitting in for pretty much the entire race, so I would expect this rider to have a decent amount of energy left coming into this final stretch. Zabolotny still chasing off the back, and this is going to be the last chance to get a power-up in this race, and power-ups are going to be very crucial to having a successful sprint finish. So we can see here, nobody really used their power-up. Either they didn't have one or they chose not to use it. And that could be a smart or really poor choice, depending on which power-up they have and the sort of profile of finish. Bit of a gap opening up with Peloquin, but it all is still under control here. Peloquin can easily just put in a little surge and catch back up. As you can see, he is going to just ease back into this group, and he is just chilling right now. Heart rate was up to around 188. It's down to around 178 now. So he's definitely feeling a lot more controlled. And they are coming in to the final few miles of this course. Hopping back into the chase group, you can see here, riders using their power-ups now. We got an aero power-up on the front, draft boost in second wheel, another aero boost turning up now. That is going to be a decent choice in my opinion, because it's always great to get another power-up and just optimize your chances of getting that best power up for the finish. You can see here, Duel still sitting around 4 watts per kilo, pulling this group along with A.E. Henry, and the rest of the riders sort of just in the draft, playing it smart. And you can see here, we're just going to hop back into that lead group because they are approaching that massive attack point where you're going to see some really high watts per kilogram before the finishing sprint. Are about to head up that really big climb. Sanscardier already ramping up his power, putting in a pretty big dig at the front here. And you can see that right here. Okay, turning on the draft boost, not necessarily the best choice here unless you're really struggling. And you can see here, it's going to be Peloquin is going to be the first to hit the front on this big climb. But Sanscardier and the others are putting in much bigger watts per kilogram. And this is going to get real here. Zabolotny is on the front right now, pushing around 8 watts per kilo, but their other riders are quickly overtaking him at around 8 or 9 watts per kilogram. This is honestly pretty crazy, the level of racing that is going on here. Zabolotny still pushing 8 to 10 watts per kilogram at all time. That's going to be around 500 watts for him, and his heart rate is getting up there at around 200 beats per minute. And this just shows that they were pretty much chilling at the start of this race. because neither of them had heart rate over around 180-ish. And we're going to hop back into the chase group because they're about to hit this climb right now. And I want to make sure to cover these chasers right now. Duel putting in a dig of around 8 or 9 watts per kilogram. Glavich is following around 8. Nickerson also has around 8 or 9 watts per kilogram. And this is Glavich just put in a dig of 11 watts per kilogram. So this is getting pretty fast. You can see here, riders all putting in 9 watts per kilogram. And this is going to be a sprint finish because none of these riders seem to be able to get a gap here in this finishing stretch. And nobody is putting in a big enough dig to really just make that gap open up. Motai might have enough to really just open up a tiny gap, but he's going to need to hold it over the top of the climb in order to actually have a solid finish. Hopping into this finishing sprint here, we got Sanscardier putting in around 9 watts per kilogram, and this is not the place to go, honestly. And Peloquin also chasing at around 9 or 10 watts per kilogram. Man, they've got quite a bit of momentum coming into this climb, going around 30 miles per hour now. This is going to be the finishing stretch of the Canadian Esport National Championships on Zwift. And you can see here Sanscardier putting in 7 watts per kilogram. And Zabolotny putting in a dig of 9 watts per kilogram. Featherweight turns on from Sanscardier. Sanscardier's got 11 watts per kilogram. Zabolotny's also got his feather going on. And Peloquin putting in 10 watts per kilogram. But I think he is kind of getting gapped at this point. And this might be the end of the race for him. We can see here 9 watts per kilogram from Zabolotny, and these riders are all digging to the line. They've already put in a huge surge earlier on in the race, and this is going to come down to the line here. You can see here, it's going to be Zabolotny. Is it going to be Peloquin takes the win here? Zabolotny in second, Sanscardier in third. All right, let's hop back into the chase group. Let me just quickly get back to them, if I can do that in time. All right, coming into this finishing sprint, we've got the chase group here. It's still the same riders, and it was not really thinned out much. Glavich is still here. Nickerson is still here. Henry's still here. All of them are still in this group, but Motai was able to hold that gap, and he's going to just ride away straight to the finish here. It's looking like he's going to ride away pretty easily, putting on that aero boost, and he is probably celebrating at this point because he just pulled off a successful breakaway in Zwift, which you don't really see often. However, he was, I believe, in the same category as the other riders, so that might be a little bit disappointing. Duel here putting in 9 watts per kilogram. Henry got 11. Nickerson's got 11.5. 12 watts per kilogram, 13 watts per kilogram, 13.4. This is the sprint I was telling you all about. And he is going to go right over the top and really just take the win for the Category B riders. We've got Henry in runner-up here, coming in second. And Duel is going to take that third place. Glavich just riding to the line here. Looks like he lost a bit of the connection in coming into that finishing sprint. Zikovic still pushing strong, and he is pushing around 5 watts per kilogram. Kudos to him for continuing to just grind all the way to the line. That's what we love to see on Zwift. So, right on, and props to him. This is going to be Zikovic coming right to the line here. And he is just going to be cruising around 6 watts per kilogram. He is pushing really hard, and he is still going all the way to the line. That's what we love to see. Good job, Zikovic, and congrats on a strong race. We've got a few more riders off the back. It's going to be E. Smith and Jay Purdy coming to the line here, pushing around 4 watts per kilogram. They're separated by around 10 seconds. This could come back if Purdy has the power, but Smith seems to be holding him off pretty well. All right, you can see here, E. Smith and Jay Purdy coming to the line here. They've got a 9-second gap, and if Purdy can put in a pretty big dig right now, he can actually close this gap. But it looks to be that he's easing off his power. It's interesting. But he is now back to around 300 watts. 8-second gap now. If he can put in a big sprint right now, he can catch E. Smith. E. Smith does not want that to happen, putting in 6 watts per kilogram all the way to the line here. You can see he is still growing that gap. It's around 10 seconds now. It's going to be around 11 or 12 once I get to the finish. And E. Smith is not going to let that happen. Jay Purdy, unfortunately, is going to be trailing behind him, but still very strong racing from all of these juniors and really strong racing across the board overall in the Canadian Esport National Championships. E. Smith takes it to the line here. I'm not sure what the places are because there are multiple age categories, so I'm not sure who's going to be the national champion for what. Jay Purdy coming to the line here. Strong ride by him today. He's got that Venge S-Works, and he is riding up this climb, 7 watts per kilogram, bringing it up to around 6 watts per kilogram, 7 watts per kilogram, and he's just putting in one last dig to really just finish the day off strong and get to that finish line. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoy watching this live stream, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you all. See you all next time, and ride on.